Chapter 41 Wanda's Dance Partner Invitation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After eating and returning to his room, he began to study magic on a daily basis. He had mastered all the magic in Harry's memory now, but that didn't mean he didn't have to continue studying. Through constant practice, he discovered that the power of a magic was not only related to his heart, that is, his mental thoughts, but also related to the degree of his research on this magic. For example, a simple full-body binding spell would not be a problem to restrain an ordinary person under normal circumstances, but it would be difficult to restrain a mutant like Wolverine whose strength exceeds that of ordinary people. But when he turned on Harry's bloodline, his spirit increased significantly, and the binding effect of the binding spell also increased significantly, and even Wolverine could not break free, if he didn't activate Harry's bloodline and wanted to increase the power of the whole body binding spell. He would have to spend time practicing and studying this magic in more depth. The same fire magic in the movie, when used by students, is a ball of flames, and when Principal Dumbledore uses it, it is a sea of fire. With the same powerful fire spell, Crabbe can only burn down a house, but Grindelwald can burn down the entire Paris. Of course, even if one practices magic to the level of Dumbledore and Grindelwald, the destructive power will definitely not be as good as that of a scion. But scions also have many weaknesses. Although their destructive power is strong, they will also be defeated when encountering some enemies with special abilities, just like even if he becomes a super scion and can easily explode a planet. If he encounters a guy like Fiorucci who controls time and space, it will be quite a headache. Only by mastering more methods can you reduce your weaknesses. In the world of Marvel, humans, mutants, aliens, gods, demons, and demons from various dimensions have demonstrated too many abilities. The method is too simple, and unless it is extremely powerful, it will be easily targeted. Moreover, the magic in the Harry Potter world is not very powerful, just because the wizard's blood there has limits, and there is no limit to Hawking's future. If the spirit of the future is strong enough, it might not be impossible for him to cast a transformation spell and turn the moon into a mooncake. Clang clang clang. Just as Hawking kept casting transformation spells on the chair in front of him, sometimes turning it into a dog, sometimes turning it into a cat, there was a sudden knock on the door. "Hawking, are you in the room?" The girl's sweet voice came from the door. It was Wanda, who was already 13 years old. "In the room, come in." He stretched out his hand and threw the unlocking spell, and the locked door was immediately opened. Tonight the school will hold a bonfire dance in the woods behind to bid farewell to the seniors and seniors who are about to graduate and leave the school. Professor Cheen asked me to inform you. Wanda, wearing a red sweater, walked up to Hawking excitedly with her hands behind her back and her head held high. Hawking smiled and rubbed her head. "Okay, I understand. Thank you for coming here to inform me. I will go there to participate in the evening." Girls usually mature earlier than boys, especially European and American girls. Wanda is only 13 years old now, but compared with the little Lolita 3 years ago, she has changed a lot. If he didn't know that she was really only 13 years old, Hawking would have thought that she was 15 or 16 years old. However, it cannot be generalized. For example, the Phantom Cat was about the same age as 12 when he was 15. Now he is 17, and he seems not to be as old as Wanda. "Well, Hawking, have you chosen your dance partner?" Wanda looked at Hawking with burning eyes. Hawking was stunned for a moment after hearing this. "Dance partner? No, I'm not interested in dancing." He had participated in this kind of bonfire farewell dance twice before, but he always brought Wanda and Pietro with him. Like those 8 or 9-year-old children, the whole party was basically eating and drinking. To be honest, the barbecue and various desserts at the dance are quite good. As for the dance part of the dance, basically only older children who have started to have sexual intercourse will participate. Most foreign children are precocious and fall in love very early. When he came to school 3 years ago, the Iceman and the little Naughty were already in a relationship, and there were many similar ones in school. Professors actually don't care much about this. Wanda's eyes suddenly lit up when she heard that Hawking had no dance partner. "Ahem, Hawking, I haven't found a dance partner yet. Please help me when the time comes, otherwise it will be embarrassing to have no partner." "You don't have a dance partner," Hawking had a skeptical look on his face. Even though he didn't have much contact with those students, Pietro knew that Wanda was still very popular in school. Many boys of the same age and older had confessed to Wanda. He has never interfered. They are all people who have been here before. As long as they don't do anything too outrageous, it's not a big deal. Moreover, the more control you have at this age, the more rebellious you become. No, no one has invited me yet. Wanda spread her hands with some guilt. Hawking laughed and said, "You must be too fierce. People are afraid of you." Even though Wanda was very good-tempered in front of him, she was actually not a good-tempered person in school. In addition, she had learned some magic skills taught to her by Hawking, and she was very good at playing tricks on people. Yes, during the past 3 years, Hawking would also play tricks on Wanda when he had free time and teach her some magic in the wizarding world. Wanda's magic comes from Sithorn, which is one of the 3 ancient powers. On the surface, it feels similar to ordinary telekinesis, but in fact it is actually a very abnormal power of thinking. It means that as long as she wants it, she can achieve it. Wanda in the main universe can directly use chaos magic to build an ideal town of her own. She can create the dead vision, and she can even give birth to 2 children out of thin air. There are also cases in other universes where all mutants disappeared with just one word from Wanda. Therefore, it is not difficult to learn the magic that Hawking taught her. She even casts the magic without the help of a wand. It's just that because the chaotic magic power that was stimulated is still very weak, the magic power displayed is not very powerful. There's nothing we can do about it. Most universes have Wandas, but not all Wandas in the universe are that powerful. The power of chaos magic comes from the mind. The more the mind is stimulated, the more powerful it can explode. Wanda Chang in the main universe inspired her potential because of the miserable experience she had when she was a child, and then encountered the induction of the spiritual scepter. In addition, her brother and lover died later, and finally she absorbed the magic power of a top magician and got the Book of Darkness. But Wanda in this universe has lived a happy life since she was a child. She also joined a mutant school and made many friends. Even though she usually works hard to practice her abilities, she has little effect. In fact, even without Hawking's appearance, Wanda from the original 838 universe was not very strong, and her body was easily taken over by Wanda from the main universe. In the eyes of the Illuminati, she was only rated as a little witch with average strength. Chapter 42 Wanda Gravity Device. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. How could I be so cruel? Did Pietro say bad things about me in front of you again? Next time I'll use the snot charm to make him look embarrassed in front of Katie. Wanda immediately looked angry when she heard this. Every time he managed to establish a good image in front of Hawking, he would be stabbed in the back by his brother Pietro. Oh, Pietro still likes Katie. Hawking's face suddenly showed a gossipy look. Katie is the phantom cat, but she is 4 years older than Pietro. Wanda folded her arms and said ruthlessly. Yes, he also confessed his love to others, but unfortunately Katie thought he was too young and refused. After saying that, she grabbed Hawking's arm and shook it. Hawking, please help me, otherwise I will make a fool of myself tonight and Pietro will laugh at me again. Okay, but don't expect me to be a good dancer. I have no talent for that. Unable to withstand Wanda's coquettishness, Hawking finally agreed. By the way, how are you developing your abilities? I can make something weighing 100 pounds float. Wanda raised her chin proudly. Hawking's heart moved, and then he ordered Wanda. Try using your ability on me. It's best to distribute it evenly, and then instead of floating up, press down with all your strength. Although Wanda didn't know what Hawking was going to do, she still obediently raised her hands and activated her abilities on Hawking. A streak of red chaotic energy evenly covered Hawking's body, making his body sink. Hey, this seems to have a pretty good effect. Feeling the pressure from chaos magic on his body, his eyes suddenly lit up. Different from the usual weight-bearing exercises that only target the body, Wanda's chaos magic applies pressure in all directions. Even the internal organs of his body will feel the pressure. Therefore, the effect of Wanda's chaos magic is actually the same as the effect of the gravity chamber he expected. It's a pity that it's still a little weak. It would be better if it were stronger. 100 kilograms of force exerted a training effect on his current physical body, but it did not reach its limit. It seems that if there is a chance in the future, it is better to get the psychic scepter to help Wanda enhance the chaos magic. That way, even if the gravity chamber cannot be built, it would be good to imitate Wanda's chaos magic. At this time, Hawking secretly had some plans in his mind. In fact, the effect of finding Phoenix Girl would not be bad, but he is a professor and has his own affairs to be busy with. How could he be willing to spare time every day to help him practice? Wanda, you see my brother helped you a little favor tonight, can you also do a little favor for me? Hawking, who had an idea in mind, put his hands on Wanda's shoulders and showed what he thought was a very warm smile. Seeing Hawking, who was a little different from usual, Wanda asked in a fuzzy heart. Hawking, what do you want from me? Just take some time every night and come to my place. Hawking was only halfway through his words when he was immediately interrupted by Wanda with a blushing face. No, it's too fast. I didn't expect it to be so fast. Shouldn't we start from? Similarly, before Wanda could finish her words, a brain collapsed on her forehead. What nonsense are you thinking about? I'm asking you to use your abilities to assist me in my practice like you just did, so that my practice will be more efficient than usual. It won't delay you for too long. 1 hour every night is just enough to exercise your abilities. Oh. That's it. After hearing what Hawking said clearly, Wanda was relieved, but also showed a little disappointment. I originally thought that Hawking had finally enlightened himself, but it turned out that he was still a piece of wood and had been practicing all day long. Nodding and agreeing to Hawking's conditions, Wanda suddenly asked Hawking before preparing to leave. Well. Since you have agreed to be my dance partner, someone else will invite you to be my dance partner. Don't worry, I probably won't go out until the dance starts soon, and besides I won't waste my time dancing with anyone else. Hawking waved his hand. That's good. If any other girl invites you, I will refuse it for you in advance. Wanda immediately nodded with satisfaction and left Hawking's room with light steps, but not long after she left the room, she was stopped by a petite girl. How's it going, Wanda? Does your brother Hawking have a dance partner? Has he promised to invite me to be his dance partner? This is a classmate of Wanda's age. Because he is obsessed with the beautiful scenery outside school every day, he also knows that Wanda is Hawking's sister, so I wanted to take the opportunity to see if I could get a sweet love that everyone would envy through Wanda's introduction. Wanda pretended to look regretful and replied. I have asked for you, but my brother said that he has to work hard to develop his abilities and has no interest in falling in love with anyone before graduation, so I don't plan to find anyone else to be my dance partner tonight. I'm just going to let my sister be the guest dance partner. You'd better accept the invitation from other boys as soon as possible. Okay, thank you Wanda, this is the latest lipstick promised to you. The girl looked a little disappointed and took out a brand new lipstick and handed it to Wanda. This is her reward for asking Wanda to help with things. Soon after the girl walked away, a second girl stopped Wanda. How's it going, Wanda? Your brother Hawking? In this way, after walking around the school, she encountered a total of 8 girls who blocked her path, and she also used the same words and received various rewards. Humph, you guys are the only ones who want to compete with me for Hawking. She returned to her room with a bunch of things in her arms, a look of pride on her face. Wanda, would you be honored to invite you to dance with me tonight? Just as she was opening the door and preparing to go back to her room to dress up for the bonfire dance in the evening, a handsome young man plucked up the courage to invite her to the dance. Roll. Wanda raised her hands, and the red chaotic magic suddenly lit up, scaring the young man and running away immediately. There are naturally many boys who invite her to dance, but in her eyes, these boys are just like her brother Pietro. They look very childish. Compared with Hawking, they are as good as the sky. It was precisely because of the huge contrast that she gradually developed a liking for Hawking, the brother adopted by her parents. At this young age, there is no blood relationship anyway, so instead of taking advantage of those classmates, it would be better to take advantage of yourself. It was Hawking who didn't seem to be interested in things like love, which gave her a headache, but at least before that, she had eliminated possible love. Rivals. At 10 o'clock in the evening, Hawking stopped practicing magic, changed into more formal clothes, and left his room, thinking of the sizzling barbecue and various delicious desserts and snacks from the last bonfire dance. He was in a good mood and couldn't help humming a ditty. The dance is a great place, it's so fun. Chapter 43 Fooling Professor X. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. At midnight, the 2-hour bonfire dance ended, and Hawking returned to his room with a satisfied look on his face. The bonfire dance at the mutant school is actually quite interesting. All the students are mutants and have all kinds of weird abilities. When everyone shows off their abilities together at the dance, it feels like participating in a magic feast. As for the dancing part, Wanda basically led him throughout the dance. After all, he has not taken a single class in the past 3 years, including dance, music and art courses. Of course, the most satisfying thing is the food. For the annual bonfire dance, Professor. Although the food in the cafeteria is actually quite good. After you've eaten and drank enough, you can go fool around a bit. Oh no, I'm going to talk to Professor X. If he wants to earn justice in New York City, he must say hello to Professor X, the principal. If we can get the support of the principal, the subsequent actions will be much simpler and a lot of unnecessary trouble can be avoided. As for how to persuade Professor X, he had already thought of a way to say it. Although he can't use the plots of his previous life as a guideline, he can still learn a thing or two, especially the personality and behavioral habits of each character, which basically won't change much and can be used as a reference. His IQ may not be very high, but if he makes a certain plan based on this information, the success rate should still be high. Even if he fails, it doesn't matter. With his current value, if he really secretly goes to New York to fight crime and earn justice points, then Professor X will not do anything to him even if he is unhappy inside, because he knows that what Professor, good evening. In the principal's office, Hawking waved to Professor X with a smile on his face. When Professor X saw Hawking appear, a gentle smile appeared on his face. How's it going? Did you enjoy your dinner tonight? Because Hawking is such a big fan, he specially asked Yuga to prepare more than 10 times more ingredients than before for the dance. Of course, quite satisfied. Hawking gave Professor X a thumbs up. For Professor X, he was still somewhat grateful in his heart. As a person who has traveled from another world, he has no special stance on mutants, humans, and the like, because speaking of it, he doesn't even belong to Marvel. What he cares about most is Oleg, Alina, Wanda, and Pietro, who bring him warmth like family. Professor X helped Oleg and Elena find stable jobs, gave Wanda and Pietro a stable school environment, and allowed him to develop stably. For 3 years, he also kept these in mind. Therefore, he is willing to make some repayments if he can. Just like this time, his main purpose is to earn justice points to unlock new protagonist templates and find ways to improve his own strength. By the way, he also wants to help mutants, which can be regarded as some reward for Professor X. He believes that a person can be self-interested, but he must also understand rewards and have a bottom line. Hawking, you came to me specifically. You must have something to tell me, right? After chatting for a few words, Professor X immediately turned to the topic. Based on his understanding of Hawking in the past 3 years, if nothing happened, Hawking, a masochistic maniac, would not come to chat with him. Hawking didn't talk nonsense when he heard this. Professor, after 3 years of hard work, I have now fully mastered my abilities. Oh, that's good news, congratulations. Professor X suddenly showed a look of surprise on his face. Hawking is very strong, even without turning into a giant ape. This has been verified in the battle 3 years ago. It's just that Hawking couldn't fully control his abilities at that time. He could only use it for an hour. He would faint after using it. Under normal circumstances, he was stronger than a normal child. Now that Hawking has full control over his abilities, it means that the mutant school has welcomed another general, which he is naturally very happy about. So Professor, I have something I want to talk to you about. What's up? Professor X had a curious look on his face. Hawking did not tell his plan first, but asked. Professor, as far as I know, we have been cooperating with S.H.I.E.L.D. for 3 years. At present, it seems that the government is indeed much friendlier to mutants, but for ordinary humans, they are still very repulsive and afraid of mutants. Why is that? Hawking, this is normal. You must know that humans are naturally afraid of the dark and the unknown. Because they don't understand mutants, they always feel that all of us mutants are dangerous and may endanger them. Life, so their fear of mutants is more of an instinct and does not mean that humans are inherently evil. We should not be anxious, and do not hate them like Magneto. Time will tell everything, and one day humans and mutants will live in harmony. Professor X patiently explained to Hawking. He attaches great importance to Hawking, and is deeply afraid that Hawking will be like Pyro, unable to resist the temptation of Magneto, and step into the abyss. Fortunately, Hawking has his own ideas and has never been affected by Magneto, which makes him very happy. Professor, I think what you said makes sense, and I think so too. In fact, humans don't know that most mutants have very weak abilities and are basically not dangerous, not even as big a threat as a knife or a gun. It's just that they don't understand, and they are afraid because of the unknown. But if there is an opportunity to let them understand mutants, let them know about mutants, and even make them like mutants, will humans' fear of mutants be greatly reduced? Hawking slowly expressed his thoughts. I mean, why don't we try to be superheroes and use our special abilities to help humans in need, so humans will understand that mutants are not all so scary. We will do this through the media later. What he said was not completely deceiving Professor X. In the timeline of reversing the future, Professor.at that time, many humans worshipped the mutants of the X-Men as idols, and the relationship between humans and mutants was greatly eased. It's just that Professor.I in the end, Qin lost control and unfortunately encountered Tianqi's awakening, and once returned to before liberation. Of course, the result Hawking wanted was not that kind. What he wants is to finally establish an existence similar to that of Walter International in the Black Robe. Correctional team. Those who can be saved will be saved naturally, and those who cannot be saved will rely on public relations to achieve the same effect. Not only mutants, but also aliens, superpowers, and the like can be brought in. Of course, you can't tell Professor X like this now. Chapter 44 The Noble Hawking. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Listening to Hawking's talk and imagining a bright future for mutants, Professor X's heart began to waver. In fact, he has always had similar thoughts, but he always has some worries in his heart, because if the operation is not good, the result may be worse, and there are many factors to consider. The first is ability. Not all mutants' abilities are that stable, and one like Qin's is definitely not good. A bad ability may aggravate humans' fear of mutants. Secondly, not all mutants are close to humans. For example, Ororo doesn't like humans that much because of his childhood experience. Forcibly ordering Ororo to help humans will only be counterproductive. The last thing is IQ, whether you can become a superhero recognized by most humans. IQ and EQ are both important. If you don't know how to adapt, many things will be very troublesome. It was originally intended to make humans change their views on mutants, but the result is likely to make humans more afraid of mutants, and will also involve the currently peaceful school into disputes. Neither the stubborn Cyclops nor the free-spirited Wolverine will do this. After much deliberation, there were few teachers in the school who were suitable. The remaining X-Men who had not yet grown up were not qualified for this important task, so he had not considered it. I understand what you said, but Professor X shared his concerns with Hawking, but Hawking smiled when he heard this. Professor, what do you think of me? My abilities should be pretty good, and I'm not as busy as Teacher Qin and others who need to teach. You can use me to experiment first. Specifically, I will go to New York City in my own name to help those in need. After it has a certain effect, I will slowly reveal my identity. Listening to Hawking's well-founded and very feasible plan, Professor X fell into deep thought. You can give it a try. If it doesn't work, as long as Hawking doesn't disclose the mutant's identity, there shouldn't be any bad effects. Because he suddenly discovered that Hawking seemed to be a very suitable candidate, he has strong abilities and is very good at fighting. He is not lacking in IQ, he is also flexible, his heart is firm and not easily influenced by the outside world, and he has a kind heart. It's just that you are still a child, and this kind of thing is also dangerous. I think we can wait a few more years. His only concern was that he felt that letting a child take risks like this went against his original intention of establishing the school. Hawking also saw this and immediately pretended to be righteous and said, Professor, only if this kind of thing is started early will it be effective, so that mutants who are discriminated against in human society can live a better life. I never feel like a child, and to be honest, even if the professor doesn't agree, I will do it slowly because it's for the sake of the school and the entire mutant population. I, Hawking, am willing to take some risks. Okay, since that's the case, let's do as you say. If you need anything, you can tell me. Finally, Professor X nodded with some emotion. A 15-year-old child with such noble thoughts made him unmoved. Even if this matter fails in the end, he feels that with people like Hawking around, the relationship between humans and mutants in the future will eventually become what he expects. You don't need anything yet. If possible, Professor, you can consider acquiring a media organization first. I think the Daily Bugle is very good. Seeing Professor X agree, Hawking showed a bright smile on his face. If Professor X could read his mind and know his true future plans, he probably wouldn't be so happy, but in fact, he felt that his plan was truly beneficial to both humans and mutants. The world is never black and white. If it is too idealistic and does not consider reality, it will be difficult to achieve the desired results. The next day, late at night, watching the lights in the rooms outside the window go out, and the teachers and students gradually falling asleep, Hawking jumped from the window upstairs, and then jumped several times to the woods behind. To earn justice points, you must choose night. Although there are various events happening during the day, overall there are definitely not as many as at night. It is also more convenient to travel at night, therefore, he will have to readjust his work and rest schedule. Most of the time, he chooses to go out at night and return to school during the day to eat and rest. This one is good. He picked a large tree of about the same thickness, jumped up and down a little, cut off the head and tail, and held it in his hand. Well, this position should be about the same. Facing south, he roughly calculated the distance in his mind. The muscles in his right hand bulged and he exerted force instantly, and the cylindrical tree trunk immediately shot out like a rocket. At the same time, he kicked his legs hard, disappeared from the spot, and appeared on the flying tree trunk. Walking on the pillar is Tao Baibai's specialty skill, and he can now do it easily without loading any templates. He can use firebolts and somersault clouds, but that requires loading Harry and Wukong templates, after returning from Shield 3. Years ago, he tried to summon the somersault cloud with the Goku template loaded, and it actually happened, and because he has the Wukong template on his body, he can also ride on the somersault cloud normally and will not fall down due to impure souls. But under normal circumstances, he would not load the protagonist template easily. One of the two templates can greatly improve the combat power of the body, and the other can greatly improve the magic ability, but they can only be used for 1 hour a day, and you have to wait until the next day to use them again. If you use it easily, and one day you suddenly encounter a strong enemy and cannot defeat it, you will be in trouble. In the dangerous world of Marvel, never gamble on your luck. It's just that this pillar flying may be slightly exposed, and ordinary people will not be able to detect it. Large organizations like S.H.I.E.L.D. with satellite surveillance will definitely be able to detect it, but so what? Anyway, he was probably on the list of major organizations' attention 3 years ago. Now he is just flying as a pillar, which is nothing at all. Besides, he didn't go to the city to cause havoc, but to do good deeds, with Professor X's tacit approval behind it. Is there still such an operation? In the school surveillance room, Cyclops looked at Hawking's back on the screen as he stepped on the tree trunk and disappeared, and he was also completely stunned. Although the school is covered by because Professor X can sense living creatures, but cannot detect some high-tech mechanical products. Today it happened to be Cyclops' turn to be in charge of guarding the control room, so he also saw the entire process of Hawking's flight. After reacting, he immediately went to Professor X to report the matter. After listening to Cyclops' report, Professor X was not surprised. You don't have to worry about Hawking's affairs, I know everything. Chapter 45 Nick Fury's Trump Card. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. S.H.I.E.L.D. Headquarters, Tri-Wing Building, Director's Office. Carol, how are the preparations for your Smart Weapon Observation and Response Center going? Nick Fury asked with a smile to the short-haired woman opposite who was holding an orange cat. This is one of his few trusted friends and his wife Maria's best friend. He was once the ace pilot of the army. After experiencing the Kree invasion together, he has been responsible for preparing a special department dedicated to dealing with aliens, the Sword Bureau. this time it was rare to come back from the base in outer space to see him. What Carol was holding in his hands was not an ordinary orange cat, but the most dangerous alien creature, the element-devouring beast. His blind eye was caused by being accidentally scratched by this element-devouring beast. We are basically on the right track. I heard from Maria that you ran into trouble in the past 2 years. Do you need my help? Carol stroked her pet's head, a hint of concern flashed in her eyes. Nick Fury immediately waved his hand. I can solve the small problem myself. You should focus on the Sword Bureau and the Skrulls. Our biggest enemies are the aliens who are much more advanced than our civilization. In his mind, the problems of the Earth are not a big problem. Although mutants are powerful, they are only a small part, and most of them are not as good as his well-trained agents. What really made him feel uneasy was those alien civilizations, especially the aggressive Kree. Through the information that Maria learned during the years when she lived on the Kree home planet of Hala, he deeply felt the power of the Kree civilization and the cruelty of the universe. For a civilization-level planet like Earth, the Kree would not know how to destroy it. And how many have been conquered? In the past few years, S.H.I.E.L.D. has been expanding its power crazily, hoping to make S.H.I.E.L.D. the most powerful force on Earth, and then cooperate with Sword Bureau to prevent possible alien invasions in the future. He never puts his hope in the hands of those dead politicians, because in their eyes, besides money, they are profit. They are good at internal fighting, but they are useless when they really do things. If you need help, you can always come to me. Gugu and Talos can both help you. After chatting with Nick Fury for a while, Carol left S.H.I.E.L.D. holding her pet Gugu. Not long after Carol left, Hill walked in holding the computer. Director, these are some pictures just taken by the satellite. It's him. The picture shows Hawking standing on a tree trunk and flying towards New York City. In that battle 3 years ago, Nick Fury had already listed Hawking as his focus, second only to Professor X and Magneto, and he had been trying his best to collect information about Hawking. However, it is only known that Hawking was adopted by a couple during the Sokovia War 3 years ago, and then came to New York to join a mutant school. Before that, due to the war, no other information could be found. Over the past 3 years, through cooperation with the X-Men, he has gained a better understanding of mutant intelligence. Sometimes, in order to obtain information, he even directed and staged several crises to seek help from the X-Men, just to collect more detailed information on every threatening mutant. When he told Carol that he could deal with mutant problems, he wasn't bragging, but he really didn't think it was a big problem. If a conflict that is difficult to balance does break out, as long as he is prepared, the advantage will be his. For Professor, and many of his subordinates, such as Cyclops, Storm, Cheen and other mutants, are indeed very powerful when they release their abilities, but if they are prepared in advance, including sneak attacks and long-range sniping, it is not difficult to deal with them before their abilities explode. The more dangerous ones are Wolverine and Death Girl. They cannot be killed by thermal weapons, but there are many ways to trap them. As for Magneto, just let Captain Marvel do the side push. Apart from Magneto, there are few who can beat him. What really threatened him was actually Hawking, who could transform into a giant ape. Until now, he had not figured out how many abilities the opponent had, what his limits were, and what his weaknesses were. He was already so strong when he was 12 years old, and now 3 years have passed. The key point is that he can't get Hawking's information at all, because the X-Men who have cooperated with him are very strict about Hawking's information. He only vaguely knows that Hawking's strength does not seem to be maintained forever. Now that the other party suddenly left the mutant school and flew to New York City in this way, how could he not be worried? After thinking for a moment, he immediately picked up the phone and dialed Professor X's number. Professor Charles, I found out that Hawking appeared here. Director Fury, don't worry, nothing is wrong. It's just that little Hawking read some comic books and wanted to use his abilities to help some people in need. He's still a kid after all, and you know, he might get bored of it after a few days. Nick Fury was relieved when he heard Professor X's explanation on the other end of the phone. If you just act as a superhero to fight criminals, of course it doesn't matter. At most, you can destroy some public facilities, which is not a big problem. But we can't keep going like this. Putting down the phone in his hand, he turned to Hill and asked. How's it going over there, Magneto? According to the intelligence sent by our agents lurking in the Brotherhood of Mutants, Magneto has recruited a new mutant who can sense the level of mutants. Now he is recruiting high-level mutants through this mutant. Agent Hill reported the information he had prepared long ago. Not every mutant has such a sense of identity. Mutants are just humans with special X genes in their bodies. They are still humans in essence. Humans have 7 emotions and 6 desires, so they can be recruited into agents by S.H.I.E.L.D. using various means. The Brotherhood of Mutants is an organization that will recruit any mutant who has strength. If you want to sneak in, you only need to show off your abilities. Therefore, Nick Fury has always been aware of the movements of Magneto's Brotherhood of Mutants. On the other hand, Professor X's mutant school is more troublesome. Firstly, the school basically only recruits underage mutants. Secondly, Professor information can only be obtained from the X-Men through cooperation. This Magneto will definitely cause trouble sooner or later. After listening to Hill's report, Nick Fury frowned. He knew that Magneto's thoughts were a time bomb for humans, and they might explode at some point. How's the research on the antidote going? Initial progress has been made. We have found a special gene in the blood extracted from Jimmy's body. It is this special gene that allows him to nullify mutant abilities. As long as we spend a little more time, maybe we can make special weapons that turn mutants into ordinary people. Hill slid the computer and a projection appeared on the wall, and the photo on the projection was of a bald little boy. Very good, as long as we can make weapons that can target mutants, then whether it is Professor X, Magneto, or that Hawking, it will no longer be a problem. Upon hearing the good news, the corners of Nick Fury's mouth gradually raised. This game of 3-party constraints is about to end, and it will become a dominant one. Chapter 46 Sin City. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. New York City, upstate, Bronx, in an abandoned park, 2 black men in hip-hop attire were beating a Mexican woman. You mean old Latin American woman, you still dare to resist when I ask you to hand over your wallet. I will teach you to remember a little better today. Just as the two were fighting, a sharp sound broke through the air suddenly from a distance, causing them to subconsciously raise their heads. Just the next second, there was a question mark in their minds. Walter Falk, what did they see? They saw a black spot in the sky in the distance slowly getting bigger. When they got closer, they found that the black spot was actually a tree trunk with a diameter of at least 1 meter. If it's just like this, it's nothing, but there's actually a person standing on the big tree. A man stood on a tree trunk and flew in the sky. The two of them rubbed their eyes and felt that they must have slept too much before going out, so they were hallucinating now, but then they discovered that it was not an illusion at all, because with a roar, the tree trunk penetrated directly into the lawn about 10 meters away from them. The man standing on the tree trunk jumped up in advance, flipped 360 degrees in the air like a gymnast, and landed firmly on the ground. The tree trunk inserted into the lawn and splashed soil on their faces. It was so real. The calculation is correct, the landing error is less than 5 meters, perfect. Looking at the surrounding environment, Hawking nodded with satisfaction. During previous vacations, he had specifically visited the Bronx. This abandoned park was the best place for him to land. There were so many people living nearby that it would be difficult to spot him. There are 5 boroughs in New York: the Bronx, Brooklyn, Manhattan, Queens and Staten Island. Manhattan is a famous wealthy area and a symbol of New York City. Many large companies are headquartered in Manhattan, such as Tony Stark's Stark Group. On the east side of Manhattan, separated from Manhattan by the East River, is the borough of Queens. Queens is the largest borough among the 5 boroughs of New York, has the second largest population, and is second only to Manhattan in terms of economic level. It is also home to some well-known companies, such as Austin Industries. Bordering Queens to the south is Brooklyn, the most populous borough in New York and the birthplace of Captain America Steve Rogers. Of course there is no Captain America in this universe, there is only Captain Carter. The southernmost part of New York is Staten Island, which has the least population and is relatively far away. It can be regarded as a small island in the sea by itself, and the sea scenery is relatively good. Finally, there is the Bronx, where Hawking is now located, bordering Manhattan and located at the northernmost edge of New York City. the mutant school was built in the suburbs further north of the Bronx, and the place where Oleg and Elena worked and lived was also at the junction of the Bronx and the suburbs. It belonged to a company owned by Professor X's family. I've often heard that the most dangerous place in New York is Hell's Kitchen in Manhattan, which is where Daredevil often hangs out, but after 3 years of getting to know Hawking, he discovered that although Hell's Kitchen is dangerous, there are only a few blocks there. The real number of crimes has to be in the Bronx. Hell's Kitchen is just a slum in Manhattan, but the Bronx is a slum in New York, because most African Americans and Hispanics in New York live in this area. The crime rate in the Bronx is one of the highest in the entire United States, and even the entire world, especially the area south of the Bronx is notoriously chaotic, comparable to Vice City in the game. Therefore, this place naturally became Hawking's first choice for earning justice. Points. It is close to the school and has a high crime rate. Is this a good start? After landing gracefully, Hawking quickly discovered 2 stunned black men holding purses over there, as well as a middle-aged woman lying on the ground with a bruised nose and swollen face. With cheerful steps, he came to the 2 black men. I kindly suggest that you return the purse to her. Fake oil. The 2 black men looked at each other, then took out the dagger from their pockets and stabbed Hawking in the stomach. This actually surprised him. He thought the 2 guys would be frightened when they saw the scene just now, but he didn't expect them to be so brave. In fact, he only came here occasionally during holidays to inspect the terrain. Although he knew something about the crime situation here, he only heard about it through newspapers and some hearsay. He didn't know that the gangsters who had been living at the bottom here were living a life of today and no tomorrow. They might die in the sewers at some point, and their mentality had long been different from that of normal people. In their eyes, although Hawking was a little incredible, so what, if he dared them to return the trophies that could be used to buy powder, they would first ask about the knife in his hand. The key is that Hawking does not have a gun in his hand. In their eyes, guns are understandably the real deterrent weapon. Compared to these little gangsters, those at the top who have lived a good life through hard work are more precious about their lives. Then don't blame me. He reached out and grabbed the knife-holding wrists of the 2 black men like lightning, and gave them a strong squeeze. Crack. Along with the sound of 2 bones breaking, the 2 black men also let out shrill screams. He would never show mercy to those who wanted to kill him. Besides, there are no reporters or other people here, and there is no need to show off, so there is nothing to worry about when taking action. Let's go quickly. He kicked the 2 black men twice in the stomach, causing them to vomit blood and fall to the ground. Hawking picked up the leather bag and threw it to the middle-aged woman over there who had just gotten up. Thanks. The middle-aged woman picked up the purse, thanked her and ran away, fearing that what would happen next would implicate herself. Hawking didn't care when he saw this. His purpose was for justice, not gratitude. Poor guy. He reached out and searched the 2 black men and found less than $20, which made him slightly unhappy. The school was in charge of food and housing, so he was naturally embarrassed to ask the Ogles for pocket money. Putting $20 in his pocket and ignoring the 2 black men who fainted, Hawking jumped up and disappeared into the park, reaching the roof of a 6-story building on a nearby street. Flavai. He stretched out his hand and cast a transformation spell on his sportswear. The sportswear instantly turned into a domineering golden armor. He picked up a fallen leaf floating in the wind, turned it into a golden helmet and put it on his head. Since you want to establish a superhero image, you must have an iconic outfit. The more fashionable and handsome you are, the more you can attract public attention and get more people's admiration. Even wearing a helmet is not to reduce trouble, but to create a sense of mystery. This is enough to explode when the identity is finally revealed. In addition to earning justice, all he did was to pave the way for the future of Superhero International Corporation. He is not such a childish person just pretending to be cool. Chapter 47 The Golden Armored War God Hawking appears. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Start working. Jumping on the roof of a building that is generally not very high, Hawking began to look for criminal incidents that fit his identity. The first time you appear, you can't just deal with some petty theft like just now. That would be too much. As a slum area in New York, the Bronx is naturally not filled with high-rise buildings like Manhattan. Instead, it is generally small buildings with 5 or 6 floors. This also allows Hawking to see everything happening below more clearly. Fights, brawls, thefts, and even murders are not uncommon in the Bronx. In the hour that Hawking was searching, he saw no fewer than 8 cases. It's just that he didn't take action even once because none of them met his requirements. He knows very well that he is not a true messenger of justice, and he also knows what he wants. There are too many crimes happening in this world. It is impossible for him to take care of every one of them, nor can he blame himself for the crime just because he did not take action. Otherwise, sooner or later, he will have a mental breakdown. The principle he has always adhered to is that if he sees something bad happening and goes to help, it must be voluntary. Maybe it's sympathy and compassion, maybe it's the need for profit, but it's definitely not forced. There is no need to feel guilty if you don't help, because it was the perpetrator who caused the consequences, not him, the bystander. Respect the fate of others, let go of the complex of helping others, and avoid being moved by yourself. This sentence sometimes sounds a bit cruel, but it is not necessarily protecting yourself. Otherwise, not only will you be harmed, but the people who truly care and love you will also be harmed. Especially now in a dangerous world like Marvel and in a high-risk area like New York. Similarly, if he himself is in danger and someone comes to help him, he will be grateful. If no one helps, he will not resent other people. What he should resent is the person who caused danger to him. Found it, the bank robbery that I love to hear about. That after an hour of wandering, he finally found a crime that met his requirements on a street in the South Bronx. In the speeding van, 4 gangsters armed with submachine guns were arrogantly firing towards the police car chasing after them. Facing the police who could only fight back with pistols, they showed no fear at all. One gangster even opened the sunroof of the van and got out with an RPG. Boom! As the robber pressed the launch button, the police car that was chasing him the most immediately turned into a ball of sparks. With that little salary for a month, what are you trying to do with your life? The gangster laughed arrogantly and got back in again. Maybe it was because they were afraid of the powerful firepower of the gangsters, or maybe because several police cars were blown up in a row, and the police cars behind obviously didn't dare to pursue them so closely. If the van escapes sight, it will be almost impossible to find them and recover the money robbed from the bank in the chaotic South Bronx. It's 2003, and this is not the bustling Manhattan area. There are not so many surveillance cameras on the streets. Get rid of this group of policemen and drive to the planned transfer point. Then we will change to another car and go back to share the money. The boss of the robbers put down the RPG, opened the 5 large bags in the car, looked at the wads of US dollars inside, laughed and gave instructions to the driver. When the other robbers heard this, they immediately seemed to be in a state of excitement. The submachine guns in their hands fired wildly, causing the police car behind them to pursue even slower. However, just when they thought they could completely get rid of the police car and successfully end the robbery, a golden figure suddenly fell from the sky and landed directly in front of them. Boss! The driver subconsciously stepped on the brakes, and the robber boss behind him immediately roared. Kill him! Now is the time of life and death with the police. Once you stop, it will be troublesome. As for the van used for robbery, he found someone to modify it in advance. It is much stronger than a normal van. It can easily knock someone over without worrying about problems with the car. Stop! Facing the van that was speeding towards him at full speed, Hawking was not surprised at all. With all his luck, he just stretched out a hand and easily forced the van to stop, and after forcing the van to stop, he lifted it up, causing the van filled with 6 gangsters to spin 2.5 times in the air. In fact, if you want to quickly deal with these robbers, you don't need to go to such trouble. Just standing on the roof of the building and firing an air bomb from a distance can blow the van into pieces. But that was not the result Hawking wanted. People couldn't see him at all and thought someone had shot another rocket. Sure enough, the scene of him falling from the sky wearing golden armor and flipping off the robber's van instantly attracted the frightened citizens on the street, and the bold ones started to pick up their mobile phones to record the scene. Damn it, monster! The overturned van obviously did not make all the robbers lose their fighting ability. The robber boss, whose face was full of glass shards, opened the door with another robber, and fired wildly at Hawking with a submachine gun. That's it! A sneer appeared on Hawking's face, and his hands suddenly turned into afterimages, catching the bullets fired at him one by one. Hexyanran with 120 combat power can catch the bullet shot by Lan Chi with his bare hands. With his current combat power of more than 140, it will naturally be easier to catch it. How can this be? That the two robbers who had finished firing the bullets were so frightened that they froze in place as they watched Hawking open his hands and a particle bullet fall on the ground. The boss wanted to go to the van to get the RPG, but before he could turn around, he felt a pain in his back and fainted to the ground. It was Hawking who knocked out the two robbers. As a righteous superhero, of course he cannot appear too cruel. He can just knock him out, and he must kill when no one is nearby. The police who were about to be thrown away on the other side finally drove over. When they got out of the car and saw the overturned van and the knocked-out robber, they were stunned for a moment, and then they immediately pulled out their pistols and pointed them at Hawking. "Don't move, raise your hands." "Who are you?" "Mars." Deliberately using amplification spell to leave a thunderous self-introduction, Hawking instantly loaded the Wukong template and shouted into the air. "Somersault Cloud." Under the stunned eyes of the police and citizens watching the excitement on the street, he jumped up onto the somersault cloud and disappeared into the sky while stepping on the somersault cloud. Of course you have to have a name and slogan, and it's best to say it yourself in advance, otherwise if you wait for the public to pick it up for you, you don't know what will happen. Although when he just said that sentence, he was filled with shame, but in order to achieve the best effect, he still gritted his teeth and pretended to say it, still using a very solemn and godlike tone. There is no way, most ordinary people in this world just do this. Moreover, they can understand the name God of War, similar to Ares, the god of war, who is also one of the gods in the Western mythology system. Chapter 48 Judgment of Justice. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. We still need to research the Wukong technique as soon as possible. After a successful appearance, Hawking stepped on somersault clouds and quickly hid in a deserted park, waiting for the Wukong template to finish loading. Although the Wukong template greatly improves combat effectiveness, it also comes with an extremely fast flying tool called somersault cloud. However, due to the interference of Wukong's character, it is not suitable for him to continue to fight criminals to earn justice points. Maybe the newly established image of a noble and noble person will instantly collapse into a bad image. Therefore, Wukong Shu, the ability to use chi to fly, is very important. If he could do the air dance just now, the effect of pretending might be even better. It's just that Wukong Jutsu is a move of the Crane Senryu style. The 13-year-old Wukong has not yet encountered Tianjin rice and dumplings, and has never seen Wukong Jutsu, so naturally he doesn't know how to practice it. This is different from Chi Yuan Slash and Chi Control Bomb. Chi Yuan Slash is the compression and rotation of Chi at a glance. Chi Control Bomb is the control of Chi Bomb by the mind. If you study more based on the principles, you can figure it out. Not too difficult, but Wukong Jutsu can make people fly. Human beings can still use external tools to accomplish this ability, and those air principles cannot be applied to the study of Wukong technique at all. However, after 3 years of gradually becoming more proficient in Chi, he also had some vague ideas. He believed that given a little more time, it would not be impossible to figure it out, mainly because he had previously focused all his energy on improving his combat effectiveness, especially the research on Chi Yuan Slash. Krillin, who has a combat power of 75,000, used the move Kyuan Slash to cut off Frisia's tail in his second form, which had a combat power of 1 million. If Frisia hadn't dodged in time, he might have been able to dismember Frisia on the spot. In other words, with the power of Kyuan Slash, if it hits, it can kill enemies that are at least 10 times stronger than itself. Even Captain Marvel would probably be hit by his current Chi Yuan Slash. He definitely needs to spend more time on this bug move. It's such a waste of money, that at the same time, he thought about the large amount of dollar bills that had been spilled out of the van after it overturned. If he had been faster just now, he would have had a chance to use the transformation spell to take those dollar bills away, but to be on the safe side and to better shape his own image, he gave up in the end anyway. He felt that there would be many opportunities in the future. About there. When the Wukong template time was over, Hawking jumped up and continued tonight's action, but this time he didn't pick any more, but solved one as soon as he found one. It's just that he always walked away after solving the problem, without even having a chance to thank the other party, nor did he give his name again. It's enough to shout the slogan once, but if you shout it too many times, it will seem to be a loss of status. In this way, it lasted until 5 o'clock in the morning, and he Solved nearly 20 incidents, ranging from theft to murder. The efficiency is still not high enough. Standing on the roof of the building on the street, Hawking looked at the progress bar on his panel and frowned. The South Bronx is indeed chaotic, and there are many chaotic incidents, but they are all distributed in various parts of the city, and many of them do not happen outside. Incidents such as homicides, home invasions, and gang fights mostly occur inside buildings, abandoned factories, and basements. He jumped on the roof to look for these, but it was really not that easy to find. In order to improve efficiency, he tried to borrow a police calling machine. However, it was later discovered that many incidents were over by the time the police call machine rang. In the past, the police mostly ended the incidents and were not as efficient as searching for them on their own. Crucially, he also discovered something very important, that is, the justice value and income of everything he does are different, and the gap is not small. Among them, the incident that gives the most justice value is the kind of life-saving incident. It's like he caught a thief who broke into a house. Even if the thief stole 100 million, he would only be given a little justice if he stopped it, and if the thief was about to kill someone with a knife but was stopped by him, then there would be 100 points of justice. In other words, petty theft, and even many things that are very bad in the eyes of the public, if they do not involve killing, will give very little justice value. Even in the bank robbery incident in which he appeared, if the robbers did not intend to kill anyone from the beginning to the end, and just robbed and ran away, the justice value of catching them is not much different from catching a guy on the side of the road grabbing a lollipop. There is another thing, and that is the panel's determination of justice. As long as it is something he thinks is justice, then it is justice. This fact makes him happy, but it also gives him restrictions. That is, he cannot deliberately create events to increase the justice value. For example, if you push a person into the water, rescue him when he is about to suffocate, then push him into the water again, rescue him again, push him into the water again, and repeat this, there is no justice at all, because when he had this idea in his mind, he had already judged in his heart that this was not a just thing, but a bad thing done for the sake of justice, so naturally there was no justice. So in the next period of time, he has two things to do. First, improve the efficiency of finding events, not only outdoors, but also indoors. Secondly, he can't take action when he encounters an incident, since it wastes time and earns less justice points. Petty theft and the like can be ignored directly. The focus is on events that are helpful to his image and have more justice points. Perhaps, we can go to Queens to look for Peter Parker sometime. If you remembered correctly, Spider-Man has a spider sense. In addition to being able to sense danger, he can also be sensitive to events happening within a certain range around him. This also causes Spider-Man to be often late on his way to work, school, and appointments, because his moral standards prevent him from turning a blind eye to those events. Of course, Spider-Man in different universes have different abilities in this regard, but it doesn't matter. It's definitely more efficient than him looking for it alone. If it's a small incident, let Spider-Man solve it by himself. If it's a bigger incident, let Spider-Man notify him to solve it. And if he wants to establish an international superhero company in the future, Spider-Man is also one of the people he plans to invite. It is certainly impossible for a superhero like Tony Stark who has the advantage of money to join his company, but for a civilian superhero like Spider-Man who is short of money, there is still a lot of hope for early contact. It's almost time, go back and have breakfast and go to bed. After rubbing his belly, Hawking jumped and disappeared, heading towards the abandoned park in the North Bronx where he first came. Dawn arrives and darkness recedes. Even the chaotic South Bronx becomes quiet at this time. It is a waste of time to stay here any longer. It is better to go back and have breakfast to fill your stomach and go to bed. Chapter 49 Daily Bugle. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Let's go. Returning to the park again, the two black gangsters had disappeared. They probably went to the hospital after waking up, or they might have been dragged away by the police. Hawking pulled out the tree trunk stuck in the ground, threw it out again, and then stepped on the trunk back to the mutant school. Good morning, Professor, you got up so early. As soon as he entered the cafeteria, he saw Professor X sitting in a wheelchair who seemed to be waiting for him. Obviously, Professor X was very concerned about his situation last night. I asked people to purchase a lot of ingredients overnight. You must be hungry after not eating anything all night. Professor. Huh, then I'm not welcome. Hawking's eyes lit up when he saw this, and he immediately sat down and started devouring it. Jumping up and down on the rooftops of the city all night is a kind of training, and it consumes a lot of energy. When they were almost done eating, Professor, after listening to Hawking's narration, Professor X also showed a satisfied smile on his face. He felt that Hawking did much better than he expected. He not only used his abilities to save those humans, but also specially created a full-fledged character image. This will definitely have a great positive effect on the change of mankind's attitude towards mutants in the later period. He can already imagine that if the god of war created by Hawking is really highly respected by the human public in the future, once Hawking admits that he is a mutant, it will inevitably greatly change the perception of mutants in the hearts of the public. Very well, Hawking, you did a great job. Yesterday, I followed your instructions and had the Daily Bugle taken down. If you think it should be manipulated, you can go directly to the person in charge there, John Jameson. What, so fast? Now it was Hawking's turn to be shocked. He had just made the suggestion to Professor X the night before, but Professor X had already won the Daily Bugle yesterday. It can only be said that Professor X's family strength is much stronger than he imagined. You woke me up the night before yesterday. You were right. I should have noticed the power of the media earlier. Professor X smiled. Even if Hawking's superhero plan fails, having a media that can report some positive news about mutants can still change some human opinions. So yesterday he used a lot of connections and spent a lot of money to buy the Daily Bugle from John Jameson and made John Jameson his worker. Get some rest this afternoon, and I'll go talk to him. Hawking was naturally very happy that Professor X directly handed over control of the Daily Bugle to himself, because that also means that in the eyes of Professor It seems that the high IQ business he has been running in recent years has begun to take effect. It is not easy to open an international superhero company like the one in Black Robe Picket. Even if you get a lot of money and don't have the corresponding connections to enter the capital circle, you still won't be able to start it. There is no point in being strong at all. Unless you are strong enough to fight against the entire world and enslave the entire human race on your own, you still have to abide by some rules. If the method is too bad, then in the end he will become like Magneto, a being that everyone shouts about, and he will be beaten by various superheroes as villains. The water on the earth is very deep, especially the 838 universe is very different from the main universe. It is not known how many powerful existences are hidden. Besides, he is not alone. There are people like Wanda, Pietro, Oleg, and Elena who are like family members. Therefore, Professor X's recognition and trust in him are very important. Because in addition to being a mutant, with Professor X helping behind, many things become easier. Professor, get me a camera. I can use it. After finishing breakfast, he said something to Professor X, and he left the cafeteria and returned to his room. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Hawking woke up and turned on his computer as soon as possible. In this era, although most ordinary people still read news mainly through newspapers and television, but in fact, most news can already be viewed through the internet. Sure enough, he soon found a lot of news related to him on the internet, and also saw videos shot by passers-by and various messages. Some people say that the video must be fake, some say that the golden armor is so handsome, and the name of the golden god of war is so cool, and some say that there is a god in this world. Even extremists say that this is the end of mankind, so gods have come to Earth. Anyway, it's a lot of mess, and it's all about anything, but it's getting popular, and because it's about crime prevention, the reviews are mostly positive. After washing up, he first went to the battle simulation room to take some photos with the camera, and then went to Cyclops to borrow his modified Harley motorcycle. Broad daylight is not suitable for tree flying in the city. Strong enough. Pressing the special button modified on the handlebar, the speed of the motorcycle instantly exceeded the limit and doubled, which made Hawking couldn't help but let out a sigh of admiration. If there had been such a motorcycle in the previous life, it would have been extremely popular. Speeding all the way, this time he did not stop in the Bronx, but went directly to the news building of the Manhattan Daily Bugle. That armored man. You said you want him to be on the front page of our newspaper tomorrow. A clown who hides his head and shows his tail. How can such a person be on the front page of our newspaper? I have already put that news on the 5th page today. Jonah Jameson looked at Hawking sitting opposite. laughed and waved his hands, obviously disapproving of his ridiculous suggestion, but Hawking slapped his big hand on the table. It's not the armored man, it's the god of war, and Mr. Jameson. Please understand the situation. This is not a suggestion, but an order. Mr. Charles should have told you that my orders are his orders, and you just need to execute them. But, this definitely has no sales. The front page should be last night's private meeting between Tony Stark and the new movie queen at the hotel. Everyone likes to see that. Jonah Jameson replied with a somewhat uncomfortable expression. He now regrets that he sold the Daily Bugle that he worked so hard to build, and Charles actually sent such a guy who knew nothing to point fingers, but there is no way. Competition in this industry is fierce now. He looks good on the surface, but in fact he is carrying huge debts. If he fails, he may go bankrupt, and Charles gives too much. Chapter 50 News Wizard Hawking. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. There are tidbits about Tony Stark almost every day. If you write about it and others will write about it, how can you be competitive? On the way here, I saw newspapers in the hands of many people, all reporting the events of last night. You should ask your staff to see the sales of your 5th edition so far today. Seeing Jonah Jameson's reluctance, Hawking patiently explained, he still values Jonah Jameson quite a bit. To be able to found the Daily Bugle on his own and develop it to this extent, he definitely has some skills. Maybe Jonah Jameson's work ethic isn't very high, and what's reported in the news isn't that true, as can be seen from the various Spider-Man noir, but what he values is this about the other party. His true moral level is too high, and he really doesn't need someone who only pursues the authenticity of news, because the news he asks the Bugle Daily to release in the future cannot all be so true. When necessary, all kinds of falsehoods and exaggerations are also indispensable. Check me the sales volume of today's 5th edition so far. After hearing this, Jonah Jameson picked up the phone with suspicion and called the female secretary outside the office door. After a while, the female secretary called back and reported. Boss, the 5th edition has been sold out as of now. Sold out? Jonah Jameson was stunned for a moment, then immediately stood up from his chair and roared into the phone. Quickly, let Eddie come to my office. The armored man will be on the front page tomorrow. I want the armored man's photo. In his eyes, nothing is as important as sales volume. As long as the sales volume is good, not to mention the armored man, even the masked man can do it. Soon, a young reporter with a camera hanging around his neck rushed in. Eddie, write me a report about that armored man, and then I don't care what method you use, whether you spend money or find connections, get me some photos of that guy. Seeing Eddie, the Daily Bugle's best reporter, Jonah Jameson immediately stood up and started giving orders. Now that he was working, he had completely forgotten about Hawking's existence. Boss, should you write something positive or something negative? Eddie asked. Jonah Jameson stared. Of course it's negative. It's more interesting to write negative things. You still have to ask me about this kind of thing. It was written that the armored man was hiding his head and tail. Maybe he was in a group with those bank robbers. They fought over the uneven distribution of the stolen goods, and finally ran away when they saw the police coming. Yes, just write it like this. You can polish the specific details. Yes, boss. Eddie was not surprised when he heard this and nodded immediately. He knew the personality of his boss best and asked just in case, but just as he was about to turn around, he was stopped by a voice. No, you can't write like that. I want you to write all positive reports for me. Turning around, he saw a strange young man sitting opposite the boss who had been silent. Who are you? I am your boss's boss. If you don't obey my orders, you will be one of the unemployed by this time tomorrow. Hawking stood up and smiled. Eddie immediately turned to look at his boss Jonah Jameson, who twitched the corner of his mouth. Do as he says. I'll tell you how to write tomorrow's news. The title will be something like this: Shocked, Gods came to Earth to save mankind. It's scary that someone can catch a bullet with his bare hands. Incredibly, a white cloud capable of manned flight appears in the Bronx. Then the content will praise the god of war to death. You can write him as God. Anyway, the purpose is to make everyone think that he is a trustworthy superhero. After saying that, Hawking took out a stack of posed photos from his pocket and threw them on the table. This is a picture of the God of War. Use whichever one suits you best. It would be a shame if you didn't become a reporter. Jonah Jameson picked up the photo on the table and looked at Hawking with admiration, feeling as if he had met a close friend. None of the 3 news headlines mentioned the name God of War just now, but they have highlighted all the key points. The key is just to take a glance and want to click in immediately to see what is going on. It's amazing. He decided that the future headlines of the Daily Bugle would all use this format. After staying in the Daily Bugle news building for a while and finalizing the headlines for tomorrow's newspaper, Hawking drove his motorcycle to Queens. At present, except for some young people, everyone still prefers to read news in newspapers, so the role of the Bugle Daily is still not small. That Eddie just now, I don't know if he is the host of Venom. While riding his motorcycle, Hawking suddenly remembered that Venom's symbiote host seemed to be named Eddie, who was also a reporter, but he didn't take it to heart, because even if it was true, he was still just a loser reporter, and superheroes like Venom were also the type that was easier to recruit. Zhongqing High School, let's go here to take a look first. Speeding all the way, Hawking finally found Marvel's famous Midtown High School in Queens. It is not easy to find Peter Parker in such a large borough of Queens, but it is much easier to find a famous public high school. At least in his impression, most of the Spider-Men in the universe should have attended Midtown High School. If this universe is not the case, then it doesn't matter. At worst, I can make up a reason and ask Professor X to use a brainwave amplifier to help find it. Hey, handsome guy, which class are you in? Meet me, I'm Lily. King Wu parked his motorcycle, and before he reached the teaching building, he was stopped by a blonde girl dressed very hotly. Zhongqing High School is a city public high school. It is not an aristocratic school, nor is it an expensive private school. There is no elite education, and the atmosphere of the entire school is relatively loose, so the students here naturally have all kinds of students, except for a few who have good grades. Most of them are actually playing, falling in love, and rebellious. Maybe they will not work hard until they go to college. Hawking's almost perfect figure paired with a black jacket and riding a domineering Harley motorcycle naturally makes him very attractive to girls of this age. Girls abroad are really direct. Hawking was stunned for a moment, then replied with a smile. Little sister, I'm not from your school. Can I ask if you know a classmate named Peter Parker? Little sister. The blonde girl raised her eyebrows when she heard this and deliberately straightened her chest. You don't look that big, why do you think I'm small? Oh, I don't mean anything else. Obviously, you are very beautiful and a big beauty. I mean I am just a few years older than you. Upon seeing this, Hawking immediately smiled and explained. He knew that rebellious girls hated being treated like children. Sure enough, the blonde girl's face became much prettier after hearing this. That's pretty much it. There is a nerd named Peter Parker in school, but I don't know if he's the one you're looking for.